Throwaway because my wife knows my main and yeah, this is about her. I'm a 34M, she's 32F, married just over 6 years, together almost 10. No kids yet, not yet, she always said. We met in college, did the whole broke together, grown together thing. Or at least I thought we did. If you'd asked me 3 months ago how my marriage was, I would have said, pretty normal. Not perfect. A little stale. Fewer laughs. More phones. Less sex. But nothing that screamed impending emotional nuclear meltdown. The first signs were small. Annoyingly small. She started snapping at me over dumb stuff, how I loaded the dishwasher, how I breathed too loud, how I asked, "What's wrong?" too often. Suddenly everything I did was wrong, and everything she did was just stress. She also got weirdly secretive with her phone. Always face down. Always on silent. If I picked it up to move it, she'd reach for it like I was about to throw it into traffic. When I joked once, "Damn, you hiding state secrets," she shot back, "Not everything is about you." That one stuck. Then came the late work nights. New projects. New deadlines. New team dinners that somehow required makeup and a fresh outfit but ended with her coming home cold, distant, and already irritated that I was still awake. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself this is what marriages look like after a decade. I told myself to be supportive, not controlling, not that guy. Looking back, that was the moment I started gaslighting myself, because she was already doing it for me. And yeah, I didn't know it yet, but something was already very, very wrong. After that first gut feeling showed up, everything started feeling off. Like when you walk into a room and know people were just talking about you, but no one says anything. She stopped asking about my day. Not slowly, just abruptly. I'd start telling her something about work and she'd nod while scrolling, then say, "Can you make this quick? I'm tired." Meanwhile, if her phone buzzed, suddenly she had energy. Full posture change. Thumbs flying. Little half smiles she definitely wasn't giving me. Then there was the gym phase. Out of nowhere. New leggings. New sports bras. Shaving way more often. I tried to be supportive, told her she looked great, that I was proud of her. She rolled her eyes and said, "Why are you making it weird?" I wasn't making it weird. She was. One night she came home smelling different. Not bad. Just unfamiliar. Some cologne mixed with her perfume. I asked, super casually, "Did you change scents?" She snapped back instantly, "Oh my God, are you policing how I smell now?" That was her go-to move. Any question equals accusation. Any concern equals insecurity. Any gut feeling equals my problem. The worst part. She started rewriting history in real time. Suddenly, I was always suspicious, always negative, never trusting. She said it so confidently, I actually started believing it. I apologized more. I backed off. I told myself I was lucky she put up with me. Then came the night she forgot her Apple Watch on the charger. It buzzed while she was in the shower. I didn't even mean to look. I swear that's true. I just glanced because it kept vibrating like it was having a seizure. One word lit up the screen. "Miss you." No context. No emoji. Just that. I remember standing there frozen, heart pounding so hard I thought I was going to throw up. I told myself it could be anyone. A friend. A co-worker. A family member who texts weird. But deep down, I already knew this wasn't nothing. And that was the moment my denial started cracking. I didn't confront her right away. I wish I could say I did, but I didn't. I put the watch back exactly where it was, sat on the couch, and tried to breathe like a normal human being instead of someone who'd just been emotionally dropkicked. She came out of the shower humming. Humming. Like we were in a toothpaste commercial. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was surreal. That night, I barely slept. Every time she shifted in bed, my brain spun up a new horror story. I kept replaying that message in my head. Miss you. Not, see you tomorrow, or, thanks. Mississippi. You. The next day, I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way she angled her phone away from me. The way she stepped into the bathroom to text. The way she smiled at her screen and then went completely flat the second she looked up and saw me. I asked her, gently, "Hey, are we okay?" She sighed like I'd just asked her to solve world hunger before breakfast. "Why do you always do this?" Do what? I hadn't even said anything yet. She launched into it anyway. I was stressed. I was needy. I was creating problems out of nothing. She said, "If I was cheating, you'd know." Then she laughed. Actually laughed. That laugh messed me up more than if she'd yelled. Later that night, she left her laptop open. She almost never did that. Normally it was locked down like Fort Knox. But she'd passed out on the couch, fully dressed, phone clutched to her chest like a security blanket. I told myself not to look. I looked. Her email was open. Inbox minimized. One thread starred. A name I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "Last night." My hands were shaking so badly I could barely click it. Inside were a few lines. Nothing explicit. Almost worse than that. Familiar. Comfortable. Intimate. I still smell you on my shirt. Next time we won't rush. That's when my chest went cold. Like something inside me just shut off. I closed the laptop and sat there in the dark, staring at her sleeping like she didn't have a care in the world. Because apparently, she didn't. And I knew then, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. I didn't sleep at all after that. Not even a minute. I just lay there next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could be so close to you and be a complete stranger at the same time. In the morning, she woke up late and rushed around like nothing was wrong. Coffee. Keys. Quick glance at her phone. She leaned over and gave me a distracted peck on the cheek and said, "Don't wait up tonight, I've got another late meeting." I almost said something right there. Almost blew the whole thing up in the kitchen. But my body felt heavy. Like if I spoke, I'd break. Once she left, something in me snapped. Not dramatically, not angrily. Just quietly. I sat down at the table and stared at the spot where her phone had been charging the night before. I did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into our phone account. Turns out when you share a plan, you also share a lot of data you don't think about. Call logs. Text timestamps. Numbers you don't recognize suddenly appearing way too often. There was one number. Always late. Always long calls. Almost every night she claimed to be working late, or too tired to talk. I copied it. Pasted it into a search bar. LinkedIn profile popped up. Her coworker. Not the one she talked about. The other one. The one I'd heard about exactly once, when she casually mentioned, some guy in marketing, was annoying. Married. 2 kids. Big smile in his profile picture. I laughed. Out loud. Like a crazy person. Suddenly everything made sense. The attitude, the distance, the way she treated me like an inconvenience instead of a husband. I wasn't paranoid. I was in the way. When she came home that night, earlier than expected, she froze when she saw me sitting on the couch. No TV on. Lights dim. Laptop closed. She knew. Before I even opened my mouth, she said, "You look intense. Did something happen?" That word, intense, almost set me off. I stood up and said, "Yeah, something happened." And for the first time since this started, I watched real fear flicker across her face. That's when I knew the next few minutes were going to change everything. I didn't sleep at all after that. Not even a minute. I just lay there next to her, listening to her breathe, wondering how someone could be so close to you and be a complete stranger at the same time. In the morning, she woke up late and rushed around like nothing was wrong. Coffee. Keys. Quick glance at her phone. She leaned over and gave me a distracted peck on the cheek and said, "Don't wait up tonight, I've got another late meeting." I almost said something right there. Almost blew the whole thing up in the kitchen. But my body felt heavy. Like if I spoke, I'd break. Once she left, something in me snapped. Not dramatically, not angrily. Just quietly. I sat down at the table and stared at the spot where her phone had been charging the night before. I did something I never thought I'd do. I logged into our phone account. Turns out when you share a plan, you also share a lot of data you don't think about. Call logs. Text timestamps. Numbers you don't recognize suddenly appearing way too often. There was one number. Always late. Always long calls. Almost every night she claimed to be working late or too tired to talk. I copied it. Pasted it into a search bar. LinkedIn profile popped up. Her co-worker. Not the one she talked about. The other one. The one I'd heard about exactly once, when she casually mentioned some guy in marketing was annoying. Married. 2 kids. Big smile in his profile picture. I laughed. Out loud. Like a crazy person. Suddenly everything made sense. The attitude, the distance, the way she treated me like an inconvenience instead of a husband. I wasn't paranoid. I was in the way. When she came home that night, earlier than expected, she froze when she saw me sitting on the couch. No TV on. Lights dim. Laptop closed. She knew. Before I even opened my mouth, she said, "You look intense. Did something happen?" That word, intense, almost set me off. I stood up and said, "Yeah, something happened." And for the first time since this started, I watched real fear flicker across her face. That's when I knew the next few minutes were going to change everything. That silence stretched way too long. She looked down at the floor, then back up at me, like she was deciding which version of reality to sell next. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. "Careful. I don't know what you want me to say." That was her answer. Not no. Not of course not. Just that. I felt something inside me crack open. Not anger this time. Something heavier. Like grief hitting all at once instead of in waves. I told her I deserved the truth. The actual truth. No spin. No therapy speak. No blaming me for her choices. She sighed, rubbed her temples and said, "It just happened. It always just happens, doesn't it?" Piece by piece, it came out. Late nights that weren't work. Dinners that turned into drinks. Drinks that turned into crashing at a friend's. One mistake that somehow lasted months. She admitted they slept together. More than once. In his car. In hotels. Once, this part still makes my stomach turn, in our own bed while I was visiting my parents. She rushed through that confession like if she said it fast enough, it would hurt less. Then she said the line that officially killed whatever hope I still had. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I laughed again. "I couldn't help it." I said. "You didn't mean not to." That's when she got defensive. Said I was being cruel. Said I was twisting the knife. Said she was already feeling guilty and I didn't need to punish her. Punish her. Like my pain was an inconvenience. She asked me what I wanted to do. Counseling. A break. Space to figure things out. I looked at this woman I'd loved for a decade and realized she wasn't asking how to fix us. She was asking how to minimize the consequences. And in that moment, something shifted. I wasn't trying to save my marriage anymore. I was trying to save myself. The weird thing about betrayal is that the emotions don't come in the order you expect. I thought I'd be furious right away, throw things, scream, do something dramatic. Instead, the anger showed up late. Quiet at first. Then, all at once. It hit me when she started talking about him like he was some misunderstood character in her story. How stressed he was. How lonely he felt. How complicated his life was. I snapped. I asked her if she'd spent even 1 minute worrying about me the way she worried about him. If she'd thought about what it would feel like for me to sleep alone while she was out lying. If she'd pictured my face when I found out. She rolled her eyes and said, "You're being really intense again." That word. Again. I stood up so fast the chair tipped over. My hands were shaking, my chest tight, vision tunneling. I told her to stop minimizing what she did. To stop talking like this was a mutual failure instead of her choice. She fired back that I wasn't perfect either. That I checked out emotionally. That I was predictable. That she needed to feel desired. I told her I desired my wife, not the version of her that lied to my face and crawled into bed with someone else. That's when she yelled, "I said I'm sorry, what more do you want?" I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, realizing how different apologies sound when someone's actually remorseful versus when they're just tired of being confronted. Finally, I said, "I want you to take responsibility without making it about me." She laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A sharp one. That's not how relationships work. Something inside me went very, very still. Because if that's how she saw relationships, then the one I thought we had never really existed. And I knew, whatever happened next, there was no going back to the way things were before. After that blow-up, neither of us knew what to do with ourselves. She paced. I sat. Then I paced. Then she sat. It felt like two strangers trapped in the same waiting room, pretending not to notice each other. At some point she asked, "So, are you kicking me out?" Not "I'm sorry." Not "what can I do?" Just logistics. I told her I didn't know yet. And I meant it. My brain was fried. My chest hurt. Everything felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart through bad reception. She took that as permission to grab her phone and start texting. Not even subtle about it. Just thumbs moving, eyes down, like the conversation we'd just had was already old news. I asked her who she was texting. She said, "A friend." I didn't ask which one. We both knew. That's when I realized I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Every wall felt like it was closing in. Every memory, holidays, birthdays, lazy Sundays, felt contaminated. I grabbed a bag and started throwing clothes into it. Not neatly. Just shoving fabric into a duffel like I was trying to outrun my own thoughts. She watched me like I was being dramatic. "You don't have to do this," she said. I replied, "I do if I want to stay sane." As I headed for the door, she finally looked scared again. Asked where I was going. Asked when I'd be back. I said, "I don't know." And for the first time in weeks, that answer was honest. I drove around for almost an hour with no destination. Ended up in a grocery store parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, chest heaving like I'd just run a marathon. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about realizing the person I trusted most in the world could look me in the eye and lie. Easily, repeatedly, without hesitation. And I didn't know how to go back from that. I crashed on my buddy Mark's couch that night. I told him we had a fight. He didn't push. Thank God. I don't think I could have said the word cheating out loud yet without completely falling apart. Sleep didn't really happen. I'd drift off for 10 minutes, wake up sweating, replay some random moment from the past where she'd smiled at her phone or snapped at me for no reason. Every memory suddenly had a shadow behind it. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Her name. A long message. Paragraphs. Apologies mixed with excuses, guilt tangled up with self-pity. She said she was confused, that she still loved me, that she never meant for it to go this far. She ended it with, "Please don't make any decisions while you're emotional." That part pissed me off. Like my emotions were the problem, not her actions. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and started writing everything down. Dates. Lies. Weird moments I'd brushed off. It was ugly how well it all lined up once I stopped trying to protect her image in my head. By morning, the shock had faded. What replaced it was clarity, and sadness so deep it felt physical. I realized something important. Even if she cut him off completely tomorrow, even if she begged, even if we went to counseling and did everything right, I would never unknow what I knew. I'd never unsee her choosing someone else. I thought about the future, about kids, about trusting her when she said she was late, about wondering every time her phone buzzed if history was repeating itself. That's when I understood this wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about whether I could live like that. And the answer, quietly but firmly, was no. I crashed on my buddy Mark's couch that night. I told him we had a fight. He didn't push. Thank God. I don't think I could have said the word cheating out loud yet without completely falling apart. Sleep didn't really happen. I'd drift off for 10 minutes, wake up sweating, replay some random moment from the past where she'd smiled at her phone or snapped at me for no reason. Every memory suddenly had a shadow behind it. Around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Her name. A long message. Paragraphs. Apologies mixed with excuses, guilt tangled up with self-pity. She said she was confused, that she still loved me, that she never meant for it to go this far. She ended it with, "Please don't make any decisions while you're emotional." That part pissed me off. Like my emotions were the problem, not her actions. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app and started writing everything down. Dates. Lies. Weird moments I'd brushed off. It was ugly how well it all lined up once I stopped trying to protect her image in my head. By morning, the shock had faded. What replaced it was clarity, and sadness so deep it felt physical. I realized something important. Even if she cut him off completely tomorrow, even if she begged, even if we went to counseling and did everything right, I would never unknow what I knew. I'd never unsee her choosing someone else. I thought about the future, about kids, about trusting her when she said she was late, about wondering every time her phone buzzed if history was repeating itself. That's when I understood this wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about whether I could live like that. And the answer, quietly but firmly, was no. I thought making the decision would be the hardest part. It wasn't. The hardest part was the quiet that came after. Once the word separation was out there, everything slowed down in this eerie, unnatural way. No more shouting. No more dramatic apologies. Just this heavy silence, like the house itself was holding its breath. She started being nice. That messed with me more than the anger ever did. Suddenly she was considerate, soft-spoken, asking if I needed anything, offering to sleep on the couch, telling me she was giving me space, while somehow always finding reasons to be nearby. It felt like she was trying to rewrite the ending without changing the middle. At one point she said, "I wish you'd seen this side of me earlier." I almost replied, "I did. You just buried her." Instead, I stayed quiet. Friends started noticing something was wrong. I lost weight without trying. Stopped laughing at stuff that used to crack me up. My mom asked me on the phone if I was taking care of myself, and I had to bite my tongue to keep from unraveling. The worst moments came out of nowhere. Folding laundry and realizing I'd never do hers again. Hearing a song in the car that used to be our song. Reaching for my phone to text her something stupid before remembering that version of us didn't exist anymore. She asked me one night if I hated her. I said, no. And I meant it. What I felt was worse than hate. It was disappointment. Deep, bone-level disappointment in someone I thought I knew completely. That's when I realized healing wasn't going to be some dramatic breakthrough. It was going to be a slow, lonely process of letting go. Moment by moment, memory by memory. And I was only just at the beginning. I found out later, because of course I did, that she'd already been telling people her version. Not the affair part. Not the lies. Not the months of sneaking around. Just that we grew apart. That I was emotionally distant. that the separation was mutual and sad but mature. Mark pulled me aside one night and asked, carefully, "Man, did something happen with someone else?" That's how I knew. Apparently she'd been vague in a very specific way. The kind of vague that lets people fill in the blanks, and somehow those blanks always made me look cold, unavailable, difficult. I didn't correct anyone. Not out of nobility. Out of exhaustion. I learned quickly that explaining the truth didn't bring relief. It just reopened wounds. So I let people believe whatever version made sense to them. She, on the other hand, seemed relieved. Like controlling the narrative was the last thing she could still win. One night she told me, "I'm not the villain here, you know." I didn't argue. Because the funny thing is, I didn't need her to be the villain anymore. I just needed her to be out of my life. That's when I realized something important. Closure doesn't come from apologies or public truth or justice. It comes from deciding you're done waiting for someone to finally understand the damage they caused. And I was done. The paperwork started not long after that. Forms. Emails. Appointments. All the unromantic stuff that officially kills a marriage. It was strangely anticlimactic. No dramatic courtroom scenes. No screaming matches. Just two people signing their names on documents that reduced a decade together to bullet points and assets. She tried one last time. Not with tears this time, but nostalgia. She brought up our first apartment. That road trip where the car broke down. The night we stayed up until sunrise talking about everything and nothing. I told her those memories were real. But so was what she did. And one didn't erase the other. That conversation hurt in a quiet, surgical way. Like carefully cutting something out because you know it'll poison you if you leave it in. After she left, I sat alone in the empty house, my house now, and realized something strange. The sadness was still there, but the tension was gone. I wasn't bracing anymore. I didn't have to wonder where she was. I didn't have to decode her moods. I didn't have to feel like I was competing with a ghost in my own marriage. I missed the version of her I thought I had. But I didn't miss the reality. That's when it finally clicked. Missing someone doesn't mean they should still be in your life. Sometimes it just means you're grieving an idea that never actually existed the way you believed it did. And that realization, painful as it was, felt like progress. I didn't bounce back. I didn't hit the gym and magically become enlightened. I didn't download dating apps or rediscover myself overnight. I just existed for a while. Therapy helped. Not because it gave me answers, but because it gave me language. Words for things I'd felt but never named: gaslighting, blame shifting, emotional neglect. Seeing my experience reflected back at me without being minimized was oddly healing. I learned that trust isn't just about fidelity. It's about safety. About knowing the person you love won't rewrite reality when it becomes inconvenient for them. I also learned that love doesn't survive contempt. Once someone starts treating you like an obstacle instead of a partner, the foundation is already cracked. The biggest lesson, though. Your gut knows long before your brain catches up. All those moments I brushed off. All the times I apologized when I wasn't wrong. All the times I chose peace over truth. I won't do that again. I don't hate her. I don't wish her misery. I just accept that she showed me who she was, and that believing her was an act of self-respect, not bitterness. If I could go back, I wouldn't change how much I loved. I'd just stop loving someone who made me feel small for asking to be treated with honesty. And that, somehow, feels like growth. If you're here because something feels off in your relationship, I won't tell you to panic. But I won't tell you to ignore it either. Pay attention to patterns, not excuses. Pay attention to how often you're apologizing just to keep the peace. Pay attention to whether your pain is being treated like a problem instead of a signal. Love isn't supposed to make you feel crazy. If someone betrays you and then spends more energy defending themselves than understanding your hurt, that tells you everything you need to know about where you stand. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it means you finally stopped betraying yourself. I'm still healing. Some days are heavy. Some days are quiet in a good way. But I don't wake up wondering if I'm being lied to anymore, and that peace is worth more than any apology I never really got. If you're in something similar, take your time. Get support. Don't rush forgiveness just to end the discomfort. And remember, you don't need to be perfect to deserve honesty. Thanks for reading.